A year ago, we wouldn't have believed scenes like this. A year ago, we couldn't have imagined one of our major cities laid so low. A year ago, the Garden City was a jewel in our country's tourism crown. A year ago, we hadn't had an earthquake in Christchurch. But in that year, we have seen extraordinary things happen. We've seen the Kiwi can-do spirit at its most inspiring. We've seen God working through ordinary people in the most extraordinary circumstances.
You need to identify what's actually occurred and the bits of what's occurred that you can do something about. Because clearly you can't fix every problem, and so much of what happened on February the 22nd was well beyond the control of our police effort, even Canterbury-wide.
For Snr Sergeant Roy Apley, in charge of policing the hard-hit eastern suburbs of Christchurch, years of training for the unthinkable paid off.
And we were quite positive about being able to save a major proportion of this, but the next one came along and it's really devastated it, unfortunately.
Once you've been in the police for a few years, and I've been here for 25 years now, over time your police training does teach you how to have some principles of how to manage things. So we have some training in emergency management, we have training in investigation, and so within your training you know some fundamental principles that you can apply to things. That so what theory is actually a military theory called appreciation. And it starts with identifying something and then asking so what to just about every question that comes up, with the idea that you'll put a contingency in. So things like that you apply. The other thing though that you have to do is quickly you have to realise that no matter how much you want to, you're not going to resolve anything on your own. And so you've got to start looking for some key partners. For all the things I try to do as a police officer, there's so much I can't control. And I think I would like to think that most members of the public would only expect me to do my best and to apply some common sense, some practical training and a little bit of risk taking in line with the sort of profession I'm in. So people would expect me to do something because of my role. And I think if you're not prepared to do that, then this is the wrong job for you.
After a quarter of a century, Roy Apley's beat is one that he really does know like the back of his hand. As we drove around the streets of the eastern suburbs and on into Sumner and Littleton, it was plain that he felt deeply for the people of this area who are still having to cope with so much. What does that mean to like a school community? I mean, you know, a school is more than just the kids. It's the kids, it's the parents, the extended family, the teachers. You know, it's like a sort of a microcosm of a bigger community. Yeah. What does it mean when effectively their community is suddenly closed to them?
Well, I guess it means all sorts of things to different people, but for most people it means just another forced change which disrupts their day-to-day lives. And you know, while it's just coming to school for a few hours, what it is though is that you know, this is a meeting place for all sorts of things at the start of a day, mothers and fathers, and interacting with each other, you know, talking about local issues which are perhaps not relevant any longer because people are coming from different areas. The kids themselves are unsettled, they don't have their classroom with their pictures and set up as they might do. Maybe even the teacher's not the same any longer. And now it's another thing to think about. We're going to a new environment, another disruption. So probably in short, it's really just another forced disruption which can make things a little more difficult to deal with. They're still worried about the unstableness of this rock face. In this next street, this was where a local man lost his life when all the rock came down and crushed his house, and he was outside in the garden. But you can see how close to the edge some of these homes are. And just looking back there, some of them aren't going to survive. And already they're talking about new rules about how close to the edge you can build. I mean, I heard earlier on that you know, the odd person saying things like, well, why would God let these sort of things happen?
I think it was the Dean of the Cathedral has been quoted a number of times saying, you know, God doesn't do that. What God does is the things that happen afterwards. You know, the hearts of people are affected by their beliefs, and that's the God thing coming in then. I mean, you know, the world is what it is, and it will react the way it reacts. And even as Christian people, you have to accept that because you can't control it. What you can do though is when things happen before you, you can make a decision about what you're going to do about those things. And that's clearly what happened in this area, particularly by Grace Vineyard Church, who led a fair proportion of our recovery effort, but also by a huge number of people that just live in this general area out of genuine caring.
Says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah, and their messages you see everywhere. You know, that's generally people's attitudes. And it's good to see that too, because it shows that people are prepared to keep working. I mean, if you weren't seeing that, then you'd be worried about, you know, how people were feeling. I mean, this is another common thing, you know, reopening soon. You know, people are gonna change. They're gonna keep going.
I think one earthquake's bad enough, but certainly 2 or 3 make it really tough. And the trouble with liquefaction is it's such an awful mess. It's not easily cleaned up, and for many people you wouldn't even have a hope on your own. So there's certainly people are hurting because of the events, and how they cope, I guess, is just again reflects how they're supported. And you know, we've been so fortunate in Canterbury with so many organisations that have come in and done a bit, particularly around the cleaning. And I think the whole thing about supporting somebody is while you might physically also be removing, say, tons of silt from a property, what you're also doing is you're doing something for the person in their spirit. So you're actually saying to someone, well, I care about you enough to give up my time or whatever you're doing, if you're a student or a worker, that I'm actually coming to support you in much more than just cleaning this away. I'm actually saying we can get over this. And I've had so much feedback from people that says, you know, the students that turned up and cleaned that silt out, not only did they do that, but you know, the bit of banter that went on, or the sharing of a cup of tea or a drink, you know, just those little acts of kindness, or someone taking the extra time to speak to someone's made a huge difference.
Normal is whatever you find it, isn't it? And today, normal is we've got a huge row of containers here protecting people from potential rockfall. We've got some empty buildings which were being used, but we've got a family that's having a birthday and they're just carrying on having donkey rides with the very young kids. And in general terms, people quickly accept their environment because you can't do a lot else. And what we can do is we can keep people safe, and that's what the authorities are trying to do. But we're also trying to encourage people to say, live your lives, you know, enjoy the times you can, keep yourselves buoyant, and all of those things together will keep us strong. And as a community, a bigger community of Canterbury, we'll eventually repair the things that need to be repaired. We'll fix the rock faces, and life will carry on. And this will be a piece of history.
Deep down, there's this sort of underlying thing where we actually do care about our neighbour. And maybe it's because we're a small country, and it's probably got a lot to do with our upbringings, that, you know, our parents were, in general terms, hard workers, started with not a lot and built up there. And I think, you know, it's that old adage that New Zealanders will make do. And I think that's built into all of us, so it comes out at times like this. And I think they're the sort of things that you cling to.